Well, I've been wired, so I have to talk sensibly here. What I hope to do is share my points of view. We know in architecture it's not 1 plus 1 ever 2, or it's not one answer. So it's just one set of viewpoints that I hope to share here with you. But the basic kind of theme or the idea is this. Some of these biases are built in here, that basically when we design, we are designing for place, people and planets. And what we aim to have is a humane, sustainable and timelessly aesthetic built environment. Okay. So with that goal, what kind of obligations or what kind of process or what kind of an approach may we have? Let me begin by this story. Maybe you've already heard it. It was Maitreya going to Indra and asking a pupil going to a teacher saying that teach me architecture. And architect tends to pass the buck. So he says, how can I teach you architecture unless you know sculpting, because it's about form, massing, etc. So first learn sculpting. He goes to a sculptor and sculptor says that without dance there is no sculpting, because it's about expression, how, mudras. So better be a dancer first. Goes to a dancer and dancer says that till there is music, there is no dance, because it's about pause, rhythm. So must first learn music. And then he goes to a musician and musician says without lyrics, music has no meaning. It's not just composition. There is a expression and a message in that. So he goes to a poet and poet says, how can poetry be taught? You live life and it's all around you. When you assimilate, when you analyze, when you interpret, and when you apply. So essentially it's all about living life, observing, analyzing, interpreting and applying. Okay? Which is exactly what we did as a child, You think any of them went to a school or a special activity area and still they knew all the three games when they play, that if you are on the beach, the sand has to be moistened, so materiality. It has to be compacted. You cannot make like the card castles, you have to mold it and you can scoop it out. So intuitively, by exploration, by, as I said, assimilation, interpretation, we created this. The question is that as a child, we played an architect. Do we have retained that quality of exploration and innocence that as an architect we can play child? The history, I think, needs to be rewritten in terms of its time phase. For example, we always were taught about BC and AD, but I think now it's better to say BC and EC, before Corona and after Corona, because despite a lot of difficulties, Corona taught us few fundamental lessons about humility, frugality, equality, sustainability. Most importantly, taught us that we are a subset of nature. We were trying to master nature. So before we forget, if we remember what all that it taught us and what all therefore should be retained with us. For example, two things came out very strongly. We'll at the end recollect this. But first, despite 80 channels, Netflix, phone, Skype, Zoom, excellent tools. But the very first moment, or sometimes even if it was a curfew, we broke the curfew and physically tried to meet someone. So it taught us that human to human bond or symbiosis and human to nature symbiosis are most fundamental for any existence, any survival. The gadgets can be a tool but does not substitute this. So if we base our development model on two fundamentals of these harmonies, I think we can't go wrong. It will never be out of fashion. What it also sort of very clearly demonstrated that, for example, we thought that we are too many in the planet and now planet cannot change its course for better. With this 2 months of undue system not coming into the main frame, we found that even Delhi air quality could change. water quality, visibility, and the blurring of so-called jungle or a concrete habitation, So it could repair itself. So give Earth a chance to kind of generate itself. It taught us very well the idea of or the race towards technology and indoors to nature and outdoors. Now, in that light, that's why I say that the paradigm shift in terms of thinking, the priorities. For example, till then, we were talking about smart cities. Smart cities, there's nothing dumb about that word or the idea. But if these images tend to be the representation of what is smart, that worries us. That is it a slogan or really a vision? Okay. So that's where these questions come that therefore have earlier cities been dumb all along? Has West to be the best? Is it a progress or a growth? Okay. For example, this, if we have time, I'm willing to put a bet. Even 5 places, if we can identify where they come from. For want of time, I put these names, and you would very innocently accept what I've written. I could have just fooled around, put any name that came to my mind, and it would have still worked. Even if I interchange these names, it would work. Back home, that was all over the world. Back home, look how diverse cultural, environmental, historic, physical context, and still outcome is this. Is this what is an architecture? Is this what is the response to place, people, and planet? Is this what is considered to be smart and modern and progressive? Both of these are Kerala. We need to define which one is right for us. Both Jaipur, which Jaipur is appropriate. Both Kolkata, which Kolkata should we be promoted? There's a difference between image versus identity. Again, Corona taught us very well. Image is what you want others to see you as, while identity is actually your DNA, who you are. We all learned that, okay, what matters is the front of the screen. We became even smarter to keep the screen on, but we were just maybe with the friend's place or whatever, versus what we felt comfortable was something else. So that is where we must understand what is the true DNA of the place. When we say place, people, and planet, it is the milieu. And why is that? That there's nothing like good, bad. It's always appropriate or inappropriate. Okay. For example, we go to a doctor for what? To get diagnosed. Fever can be for 10 reasons. Hope not, but 3 people from here have fear. One could be a virus, one could be simply a submission exertion, one could be something else. So he knows many things, but he doesn't go by that आज virus बोल देंगे, आजकल फैशन में कोरोना है, but it is appropriate to your history, your situation, your symptoms. Okay. So what therefore is the learning or the context such as India that we can talk about? For India, one clarification of definition I like to give here, history versus tradition. Why? Because often we think these are synonyms. Both are a matter of past. But there is an opposition, contradiction. To me, history is a dead tradition in context of India, while tradition is a living history. Both come from the past, but one ceases to be appropriate and therefore dies its own death, that is the fossilized history. While the other one has come from the past, but it becomes or continues to be part of us today, which means that it's as much contemporary, it has transcended time, because even today those values are relevant to us. For example, I'm sure you all celebrate these festivals. In fact, Baroda's Garbas are very popular. So if your generation, kind of engages with that festival with more fervor than your mother and grandmother, Is it tradition? Is it yesterday's history? Is it past, or it is as much present? Okay. So to me, in Indian context, when we say tradition, it is actually the constant that has exalted time to continue to be part of us even today. The mistake we make is that we look at the manufacturing date instead of an expiry date. What matters is an expiry date. And that is why you see moorings of time, we simultaneously find our moorings of the past and aspirations for tomorrow coexist to create realities of today. Because for us, time is a cyclic phenomenon, and these overlays of time are constantly a part of us. For example, look at this picture from Ahmedabad. It is a very archaic vehicle to advertise, camel cart, few thousand rupee a day. But what is it trying to tell you? Australia calling. It wants you to be a global citizen. And yet the medium to effectively communicate is very archaic. Hmm? Caring and sharing, but more about individual and collective. Okay, that each one's identity is retained, and yet you have to be part of the collective consensus. And most importantly, pluralism. And as space makers, this affects us the most. How do you create a space that works for different value system, different users, and not only once but over time? And the lessons we learn about pluralism are already from our own ethos. One, the belief system, as many people, as many God. I can say mobile device number. Where you reach is more important than who takes you there. And that's why in a temple, the Garbhagriha is so dark. That form is not important. Nirakar Bhagwan. It's your notion, what conjures with your mind's eye is the God in front of you. Okay. Attire. 6 yard sari, same sari can be worn as differently and even looks different on different body contours. So one resolution, but multiple responses of that. Okay. And the epitome of all is the concept of a thali. Thali as an idea of a combination meal. Okay. You and I both love pizzas. Many people are saliving already. I'm sure tonight we might think of that. What is the difference? Not the dish and the ingredient and liking, but pizza is an idea of a complete formula, complete meal. Can you have half-cooked pizza? No. Yes, you are given even the choices of the topping and the crust or the cheese type. One scoop, then it's complete. First bite tastes the same as the next, tastes the same as the last. And you eat the same pizza as I do, we can share the experience of food alike. Turn it to thali, idea of a combination meal. Every ingredient is completely cooked, but you don't eat one alone. So first pluralism is that you are the designer of every bite. દરેક કોળીઓ તમે જાતે નક્કી કરો છો. So every bite is a unique composition. First bite need not taste the same as the next, need not taste the same as the last. And you eat the same thali as I do. We cannot compare the experience of food alike. Why? Because my sequence may be different, my combination may be different, and my proportion may be different. So fantastic idea of pluralism, that if you leave others to complete, although which is complete, okay, that's next, that how does person cognate? Design is a dialogue. You encode set of clues and the perceiver decodes it. Okay, and that's where seeing versus perceiving, there's a difference. For example, what do you think is this right hand side picture about? Anybody? Just quickly, randomly. It's a street scene, suppose. You think it's a tall building street or a short building? Tall building. You think it is a day time or night time? And you think it's China or Mumbai? China. Now, what have you done? Suppose I say this was a carbon paper. I used to scribble My young kid used to doodle on it. My wife used to do accounts on that or whatever. And it is just an impression of a carbon paper. But what we do is the chemical locha. Eye sees it, but that locha in the mind, that's where brain processes it. So what you try to do was abstraction like that, the two converging lines, so it's perspectival, so it's street, more vertical lines, so it's a tall building, maybe patches of highlights, so at night, maybe someone saw a dragon there, maybe therefore. So what I'm saying is that till we actually fathom, the mind doesn't rest at peace. So perceiving is inclusion of your mental and bodily processes, while that other one is physical. Okay. Now to support that, this is a scientific experiment. Can someone read it for me? One volunteer I want. Anybody, quickly, please. Read this. I couldn't believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. So the content power of the human mind. According to the exit of Yatin Pandya, doesn't matter in what fundamentals in the world. The only important thing is that the first and the last letter be in the right place, the rest can be total mess, and you can still read it without problem. This is because the human mind does not need every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. Amazing? Yeah. And I always thought very much more. Thank you. So the point is that, in your smart computers these days with AI coming in, not only there'll be red lines, but it would give you a note that please learn the language, I'm too busy, don't fool around with me. And then little later start giving you shock if you continue this. So grammatically, language wise, it's all wrong, yet communication wise, it didn't miss anything. That's why I wanted a volunteer that I have not mugged it up. Hopefully he's reading for the first time and still could get it. This is even further. This message serves to prove how our mind can do amazing things, impressive things. In the beginning it was hard, but now on this line your mind is reading it automatically without even thinking about it. Be proud, only certain people can read this. So that's the difference of seeing versus perceiving. And therefore in design what we are trying to do is to encode the clues which will help someone perceive where mind and therefore emotions are involved in that. So it's not a physical act of making it stand. It's not a form, but what it evokes, a response is all about it. That's the important part of it. Therefore, design is not about finding one answer to one question. It's about asking many questions, finding many answers to each question, and then picking one answer that answers most questions. Okay? It's about discretion, it's about adding the value, and therefore, rather than good or bad, it's always to ability to discern between appropriate and inappropriate, and appropriate to place, people, program, and planets. If that is the idea of a holistic design, does that come across as so? To me, it's too quick, too singular, and one question, one answer game. That if child is dirtying the attire by tossing around the floor, you design the attire itself like a mop. जहाँ जहाँ जाएगा वहाँ पोंछा करता जाएगा. Therefore, any development must go through the 6 criteria of concerns. There are 5 written. I'll say the 6. Timeless aesthetics, because building lasts beyond us and it should be as awe-inspiring as every time. Socio-cultural appropriateness, because you're always doing for someone's way of life. Environmental sustainability, that is resource management, because every of our design decision may have a far-reaching implication to the planet and its condition. Functional efficiency, which is basically why we are called Economic affordability, without that it won't be viable, and structural stability or strength, because if building has to last, it has also got to be safe and secure. So what therefore is this about? My favorite example from here, India, is the step well. Actually, these plan sections don't give you so much. That's why we did this miniature style painting, to give some experiential quality, which is what it is about. How? This is plan and section, and today, if I'm sure you do it as your thesis design, all teachers would say, "ये थोड़ा बहुत tension ला, बहुत predictable है. It's very symmetrical and boring. I think you should create some excitement and tension and all that." So plan section doesn't give away its experiential quality. It is all about its partial narrative that comes from you being there. And how do you decode? Okay. For example, from middle of nowhere, why I like this is all below ground. This is functionally obsolete, and technically it is neither a palace to glorify nor a kind of a shrine to really revere. And yet, 6th century old defunct functional structure, if you pay ticket and go 5 story down and come up without an elevator, and if somebody supports you financially, you might not want to not go again. You want to go over and over. What is that quality? Hmm? So, for example, look at the irony. The clues are what? It's always say like a treasure hunt. That once you reach somewhere, the next clue is offered. And what does that do? Sequential unfolding. What does that do? That it keeps you engaged into the game. That like Thali, you are the player. It's not something laid out for you. You have to decode, and therefore it becomes your experience that you retain. There is curiosity, there is anxiety. Everything is not told at the go. Like a good film, where there are turns and twists. But a bad film will say कि वो तो पहले दिखाया नहीं, suddenly कोई आ गया. Then it's fooling. But somebody was always there and you couldn't figure out. Hmm? So from middle of nowhere you get this outcrop of stone with few steps. Now look at the irony. In order to go down, you are made to climb up. Now, where this point it comes to your eye level. You don't know what's coming further. Okay. The moment you take first step, the void further is revealed. So that was a nuance you did not know before. Now it has come to the fore. Not only that, you see, there is no roof over it. So there is a light. So it becomes like a visual focus. Drawn by that, you come to there, and now 3 sides you are shut out. And you turn to, because 3 sides are inclined step. So you go to the fourth intuitively, and that's where you get this beautiful panoramic view, welcome to my precinct, and it tells you that you have to go that far, but you are not a crow to fly up to that. And mind you, this picture, there's someone's head standing there, unfortunate moment, but right behind that, the last plane has the relief of Ganesh. We'll talk about that, but situation you remember. So it's a first visual frame, but the last physical plane. Okay. Now here it tells you it's that far, but you don't know water, you know nothing further. Now, like Thali, every platform that you descend, there is a varied experience and things are changing. For example, first platform, this feels like a terrace with a tall parapet, because you can see sky, there's some degree of enclosure, and there's intensity, bright light. Okay. Moment you go one floor down like that on the left, it feels now like a room with a chhat and the wall. So it's like an enclosed space, but there is still diffuse light coming in, and there is a kind of a, visual composition of that sort. You go further down, like right bottom, and now you begin to feel more and more enclosed. So as if you have been sucked into the ground. So you feel you're being kind of taken, pulled into the well. The light decreases, sense of enclosure increases. the composition changes, and if you are perceptive, even the temperature cools down, go down. So like thali, every platform there was a different experience. Okay. Now if you walk straight, again like thali, if I only had ras and puri, it's a different thing. And if you had more pickle in the rice, you had a different thing. So if you walk straight, so far the picture is symmetrical. But somebody goes away on the axis, it's different experience for them. And only at the end the water is revealed. So water was merely an excuse. So in architectural making, it's a narrative where the destination is merely an excuse, nimitta. It is the journey that matters. I always joke that if Mr. Biden or Kamala Harris or Mr. Trump wants to visit this, commando should not parachute him down, you know. Unless he wants to climb down, descend down, he better not come. We'll send the water. Prasad to bhej denge. But if he encounters this himself, then only there is a value of that experience. Okay? And look at the steps around the water. And look at the above octagon where there are benches. Now this is the most holistic solution as architecture. First, it is the place to fetch water. So just a device. In a hot, dry climate where there is no perennial river, and if you were to make a kund harvesting rainwater, in the summer when you need it, it will have been either leached down or evaporated. So you dig a small hole up to the first aquifer, and that is tapped by you going down. So you go to the water, Muhammad goes to mountain. Okay. Now when you cut a slice into the earth, earth would cave in. For that you have shoring and strutting in terms of column and beam. So that's a beautiful engineering, top down. So engineering, climate, because of the coolness in a hot dry climate on a caravan route, you had a sitting area, sleeping area, so that you rest in the summer afternoon and then continue. So it was a social place. Women having to do mundane chores when they come near the kund, there are steps like that. They can sit there, they can gossip and bitch about their mothers-in-law, husbands or whatever. So it was a skitty place, so to say. Okay. And with notion, so not only physical but also mental association. We have two associations with Mother Earth. One, Prithvina Peta Majava, going to the womb of Mother Earth, and that's where that aspect of motherhood, fertility. And that's why you have the goddesses represented in the rock. Okay. In fact, in Ahmedabad, at Astoria, that Matar Bhavani, many families bring their newlyweds to seek blessing before they go on for honeymoon for their future samsara, so to say. Okay. So one is that, and that's what is represented by that. And the other one is Pruthina Patala Majava, tripartite division, heaven in the sky, earth in the ground, and Pata below ground. Okay. And that's signified by the symbols about water, etc. For example, as I said, that the first thing that we saw, Ganesh, last plane, first visual frame is Ganesh, which marks the auspicious beginning of a journey. And the same shaft ends with that of a fish, which reminds you come to the water world. Okay. So a simple utilitarian device has not only been architecturally exalted, in a scarce resource it has been exalted and exuberated. Also it became a social place and it became almost a shrine. That's why to me this is a very complete architecture. Now it's not only romanticizing the past, very modern and contemporary architecture. In fact, Mr. Le Corbusier had this theory, promenade architectural, architecture is a walk, architecture is a journey. Millionaires Association building in Ahmedabad, that's what we know it as. Now look at the sequence. From a very neutral cubical facade and equal division, the only aberration is the ramp jutting out. I always say it's like a frog's tongue that just swallows you in. So anybody who goes doesn't have to ask, "Bhai, kahan jana hai?" That is the ramp that you take. Now, mind you, when you take the ramp, look at that stair to its right, but that's hidden. So it's not confusing. I will get a complex that I take a ramp as a slow person and he would jump two steps together. There's no conflict. Everybody can take a ramp. There is something there, but not for now. Hmm? You go up, there's a small little window, so it gives you a trailer. There's something coming, there's light at the back, there's void further. Hmm? Spatial construct. So that says come right. Now when you go there, the other side is open view to the river, so it's a perpendicular fin. And there is a little bench and that kind of works as a pivot. From there you can turn around. Mr. Doshi used to say, it took them very long to decide on the shape of this bench, as stupid a bench as it is. Now when you turn around, and of course there is also a toilet, which is just like you see here. Do you know it's solid or not? It's just a wrap-around plane. Okay. Now when you turn around, now that staircase is revealed to you. Till that you didn't know about it. Okay. Now you saw that, you're trying to go up. Once you go up, just a frame, you entered into another threshold. That when you come, now yet another stair, not the staircase going like that. There are 6 modes of vertical transit. So the third one is in the middle of space. It's very sculptural. It's a dog-legged, kind of a folded plate and very sculptural, beautiful. Now here, when you go up, at the mezzanine, the same toilet which in the previous slide you saw as just a wrap-around plane, now it says that it's a solid sculptural mass in a larger volume. So it was always there, but you were placed in a different point of view to see it accordingly. Okay. Then I don't have 2 slides, which I should have. There is a ladder-like steps coming till the till the terrace, and then there are even rungs to climb the water tank. So 6 different modes, and each giving you the experience accordingly. Thali that we were talking about. Even with that structure, there's enough diversity that if I say South Indian thali, I might be insulting many. Gujarati thali, but Kathiawadi is still different. Okay, so structure is the same. You can't say what is an Indian food by recipe or an ingredient, but all Indian food, that mix and match idea, thali as a kind of composite combination meal works for all, whether it's Sadhya meal of South or any thali. So what are the principles we take away? We are not romanticizing the past. We saw that even modern architecture, that idea of unfolding and all that work. So the principles to take away, even if you do steel glass building, that is, one, disparate visual and physical access. You know where you have to go, but the physics, so it is not a stressful labyrinth. It tells you I'm here, but you have to take a detour to go there. And when you do that, like for example, if I walked and there was a barrier here, I know that I have to be there, but it allows me to turn like, oh, there is an exhibition. I didn't notice that. And then I say there, oh, there are a few more maps. Let me go there. So it makes you aware of many points of view of that. So it's a complete kind of expression of what it is. So one is visual and physical axis being disparate. That is why it is like layering of spaces. It's like cabbage or an onion. If you peel all the layers, there's nothing left. But the whole essence is in those layers. You go to South India, that Srirangam temple. There's 7 layers to the city, from a wholesale truck movement to a very precinct, very pristine garbhagruha. Okay, so each layer, and that's why many of these, when we see in plan, it's a misnomer. We've been all told that Islamic architecture is all symmetrical. Mind you, that's in plan, including Taj Mahal. Okay. If you see this, it's symmetrical in plan, but there is a water Am I supposed to swim clean and go there? Actually, it puts me off axis. And that's where I see the same in a different perspective. Same way, Rajput architecture, the jali of a courtyard. It tells me there's something further, but I can't walk straight. I have to go around that. Okay, so hide and seek. Modera Sun Temple. You can't walk dar straight. You have to go 3 steps, then you turn, and then you realize there are 108 shrines. And no two times you can walk on the same stone. I can guarantee you that. Same with temple. If you walk, there is Nandi, there is Dhajstambh, there is Dhaja, there is whatever. You're not supposed to go like that. In fact, it takes you off axis. Therefore, movement is the key. Indian or any experientially engaging architecture, you have to see it by the movement. You know, there is a door there and there is a door here. This is symmetrical on the axis. But door here and diagonal door there, even though I'm in that room, it's not symmetrical. So, movement also for conditioning of mind. Choices, as I said, multiple truth. So, there are ways that you can encounter, but eventually the goal would be the same. Like this kinesthetic idea, this is the Shah Jahan gate, you know, from a narrow labyrinthine street of Agra, halwais might be pouring milk and whatnot. When you come to this gate, till then, it's not revealed. At this point, you say this, get this view of Taj Mahal. That's where you appreciate the scale. You abstract it to be 4 minaret cube and a dome. Now there is an axis with water. It adds to the grandeur, but you can't go straight. If you take selfie, you will fall behind. You have to go around. When you come down and around, you've forgotten about all that. But stair is the opposite. You know, if this is Taj Mahal, you have come from there, Taj Mahal is here, you don't walk straight like that. You go sideways and then ulta. And that's where at one point the tunnel frames the minaret. And it's to me a fantastic narrative, fantastic recall that remember there were 4 minarets and the dome. You have come to the right place. I am that minaret. I'll escort you. And it's the same arch, that and that. So how many meters, hundreds of meters have been dissolved to remind you that once there was a Rajkumari who was doing this. You talked about Rajkumar now you bring them together. So that's the way narratives play on that. Nature. Built form is always static, but you integrate it with nature. It's in the nature of nature to constantly change. Nature in terms of light and sun, nature in terms of vegetation, nature in terms of water, nature in terms of wind, nature in terms of landform, and nature in terms of people and activity. Okay? That's why elderly people like to sit on a street so that there is n number of accidents or accident, I don't mean physical, but by chance activities happening, which in a Netflix becomes very boring after a point. Nobody wants to be sitting at 6 o'clock at home watching a TV. And final is the semantics, not the first. Till now it was humanly universal. When we see Ganesh or the way we walked into the temple, it was a humanly universal experience. But even a farmer from Russia would experience the same way, encounter the same way. But he would not be able to distinguish between Ganesh and what it means versus elephant. Why is there an elephant there? That is culturally specific. So there are 2 levels. So that is notional. For example, swastik to a Hindu is a sign to revere. If I draw swastik at the gate, I'll not walk on it. But the same sign for a Jew, they would try to spit or kick it. So that's notional, that's cultural, that's familiar. So these are the kind of 6 principles when we do the architecture. that make encounters count. Give, reveal and hide so there is anxiety. That was 10 for the 6 principles, okay? that any space must inform, involve, and inspire. It tells you about who am I, what are you, what is it. It involves you, that it's your journey. It's a game that you are a part of. And what do you carry back? Hmm? Like always say, film direction, whether it's Three Idiots or Munna Bhai or whatever, there is a overall message. If it's MBBS, then health and kind of a system of hospitals. So he decides on that format and that message. Then he decides humor is the genre in which he wants to say this. And then he decides certain junctures that be human, don't become mechanical. Then, so, and he shows that how many things can be simply be treated just by being human. System pe mat jao. Yeah. So those are few junctures around which the whole story is woven. Three Idiots, an education system. That education is not about degree but about learning. That it's not mugging but it's knowing things. That you don't have to force students on this or that. Let them be themselves. Don't be over demanding in terms of system. Understand the intent. So many things that it tells you about that. Indian temple, if I say in a lighter way, temple, Pradakshina, three-part building, the column and the dome, that is Sabha Mandap or Nritya Mandap. Next one is, instead of column, it is wall but with punctures, that is Gudha Mandap, little smaller but higher dome. And the last one is Garbhagruha, just the wall, totally dark, and the shikhar. Now, what is the relevance or the architectural support to the idea of worship? Prayer to the Hindu is about introspection, Atma Manthan. Now, that interpretation, what can architecture do to enhance that? So, it's basically giving you a transition both in time and in mind from the corporeal to the spiritual. How does it do that? That it withdraws you from the worldly gradually as you go further and further. That cannot happen overnight, just like that. Okay? So, from a very amorphous, it brings you to a very, very sort of defined, very large to very intimate when you come to Garbhagruha, very personal space, very bright to very dark, and open for distraction to fully concentrated. Okay, so that's the transition, and in that process, when you go there, we know that we can shut eye and God is in front of us. But then going to temple allows you to mull. When you go to the circumference, I always say that if somebody was heartbroken, somebody wants to propose on Valentine Day, puts up a gamla as a proposal, and that lady that day was in a furious mood. He squashes your gamla flower and says, "You are nobody to me. Don't follow me. You're not my hubby." And then that guy's totally shattered and heartbroken. That's where he remembers Bhagwan. So he goes to a temple. मैं आता हूँ भगवान, ये मेरे साथ क्यों हुआ, मेरी क्या गलती है, ये सरासर अन्याय है, तो बिल्कुल इसमें तो तूने ये बिल्कुल अन्याय किया है, give me an answer, I'm coming. So you go there. पहले ही वो एक्सिस में विजुअली तो दिखते हैं. आप गए वहां पर बहुत गुस्से में थे, घंटी बजाई, मैं आ गया हूँ, फिर फिल्म देखी थी, थोड़े बहुत डायलॉग याद आ गए, खुश तो बहुत हो गई थी, तुम आज तक तुम्हारी सूर्या एंड ऑल दैट. भगवान बोलते बेटे देर आए दुरस्त आए, पर थोड़ा ध्यान रख, आगे नंदी है, सिंग लग जाएगी, तू घूम के आ, मैं तो पत्थर हूँ यहीं बैठा हूँ, तेरे लिए मैंने कॉलोनी बनाई है, वहां घूम के आ. Now when you walk through that, you start thinking, why did she refuse me? I was such a nice boy. बेटे बहुत अच्छा था, पर 15 दिन से तू भी इधर उधर भाग रहा था, मुंह मार रहा था, पर वो तो आजकल सब इसकी इतनी बड़ी सजा, पर 3 दिन पहले जो तूने किया था, व्हाट वुड यू हैव डन इफ यू आर इन हर प्लेस? तो ठीक है, चलो गलती तो है मेरी है, मेरे साथ ही ये होना है। देन यू कम टू गर्भ, और फिर से हिंदी फिल्म काफी काम में आती है जिंदगी की फिलोसॉफी में। वहां आए, आप अकेले हो, तब वो तो इतनी प्रेटी है, इतनी पैसे वाली है, मे बी आई एम नॉट द राइट मैच, यू नो। ये हमारे रणवीर भाई होते तो बोलते कि लेट गेट मी माय गो टू वीकी कौशल, आई आई वुड डिसॉल्व माई सेल्फ। प्रेम का नाम ही बलिदान है, आई बी द बेस्ट लवर बाय नॉट एक्सप्रेसिंग माई थिंग एंड डिसॉल्व माई सेल्फ। पर बाहर आए तो फिर से वास्तविकता है कि अनवाइंडिंग, कि यार ये क्या हो गया, अभी ये तो गई, सच में गई, तो कोई बात नहीं, आलिया भी इतनी बुरी नहीं है, चलेगी अगले। So point is that it's that investment in time, you being there, conditions of the space, and then whatever way that you connect. So that's what is the architecture in terms of its spatial experience. It's a narrative, it's a spatial journey, and it emotes. It's not a physical act. Okay? Then socio-cultural appropriateness, as we were saying. There was a study done in Japan that if the senior executives were relieved of their tight tuxedo traveling suits, simply right dressing would have meant that they could actually feel the same level of comfort with few degree warmer temperature. So you have to run extra air conditioning energy simply because you're not dressing correctly. So, if Mr. Mohanlal or people from the coastal region, which is humid, if they are bare-chested and they only wear moon, are they primitives or they are the smart Salman Khans of their respective places? We knew Gandhi who could veil and unveil, so it was eternal, Shashwat Gandhi. Do we need that, or we want Gandhi to toe a line? What is cool in winter or what's hot in summer? These are all one question, one answer designs. Lipstick, it's a shringar, it has to be a poetry, personal thing. वो पहले सीरियल में आता था ना, हर बार बिंदी अलग होती थी, और उसके लिए अगर टेम्पलेट चाहिए बिकॉज यू आर गेटिंग लेट, व्हाट इज द फन? हमारा शू इज मोर एक्सपेंसिव देन अस, so उसके लिए अम्ब्रेला करो, कंट्रोल ऑल डिलीट थ्रू सिंगल स्ट्रोक, और नूडल्स हॉट चाहिए पर लेट हो रहा है, इसके साथ में फैन डिजाइन करके ही दो। एंड एज आर्किटेक्ट वी आर नॉट टू बिहाइंड, आई ऑलवेज से कि इसमें आर्किटेक्ट बच जाते हैं, थैंकफुली our impression and legacies go beyond us, it precedes us. ये डेवलपर बोलेगा या घर वाला, आर्किटेक्ट लोग बहुत क्रिएटिव होते हैं, मेरे वहां डोर नहीं है फिर भी बालकनी दे दी, ये इनको ही सोचता है, तो चलेगा, थिंक एनीथिंग यू लाइक। We make blunders, okay, and then we do building construction classes to solve the problem, or PhD to solve the problem. Point is, design is about adding a value. Okay, the value can be aesthetics, humor, satire, affordability, environment, whatever that may be. For example, even a personal tattoo. I always wonder, जैसे बताए, आर के पहले तो लगवा दिया, फिर के बदले आप ए करना है तो क्या करेंगे यार? मुझे तो बहुत परेशानी होती है कि ये सोच के, इसके बदले वी आर ऑल आर्किटेक्ट्स, कैन वी नॉट हैव अ स्केल ओवर हियर, यूनिवर्सल वेरी हैंडी। एक्चुअली आई ग्रू अप इन अ टाइम this was absolutely acceptable as 1 yard. Okay, no cloth ever bothered to find by micro, millimeter or whatever. It was a different story that sued Ahmedabadi banyas would put Nepalis on the counter, तो उसका यार्ड ऐसे आएगा. So point is that can that add value to? For example, अभी नवरात्रि आएगी ना, so the machos are ogling over the backless stories. So give them an eye check. બેટા ચોથી લાઈન વાંચી નથી શકતો, પહેલા જઈને ચશ્માના નંબર કઢાય પછી નીચે જોજો. અને આ કરતા તારું પેલું મેટ્રો સ્ટેશન ગયું, હવે નેક્સ્ટ સ્ટેપ અહીં ઉતરી જજો. All these are switches. Functionally, they must function as switch, but they add a value of awareness for environment. The one on the left, when you keep the ghost little longer, from smiling ghost of that switch, it starts making faces and then really becomes furious. You moron, shut it out, it's too long. It reminds you કે રહી ગયા. हमारे गुजरात में આપણા અત્યારે તો મેળા કેટલા ટકા મારા શું અમારે. So special range that every time you have to put on the light, you put a coin. And then we become very conscious and romantic. अरे आज तो full moon day, let's not use the electricity, we have to eat without. But it serves the purpose. This one, England, pattawalas. So every time you come, put your hat or a coat, the light comes on. When you go, it switches off itself. And maybe this is very romantic French that you whisper. Keyboard is a keyboard, but added value. Somebody thinks of three-dimensional contour. Somebody thinks of flexibility of key arrangement. Somebody thinks of it being able to be folded, waterproof, cheapest, three-dimensional, likewise. We believe in avatars. Why can't our product be such that it can even serve meaningfully for the next cycle of its use? Way back in 1970s, decades of 70, Heineken beer came up with a form of a bottle rather than round, a squarish form and with serrations. So that once you go high in spirits, you turn it into a wall brick. So brick in the wall, પછી દિવાલો ઝૂમે. Sustainability is simply a contextual adjustment with minimum getting the most and correct. Aping versus adapting. When we mindlessly copy from somewhere, even if you need it at night, you don't have to announce it. So when you mindlessly copy from a single source, that is plagiarism, and when you smartly copy from 100 sources, usually you are awarded PhD for that. All the three narrow lanes, the first one, traditional, arguably, is positive. It's celebrating Bharat because there is a direct interface, there is a door. The next one is an outcome of planned environmental lane for drainage and sewage and whatnot. But look at the design fault. There is only a window of a kitchen coming out, and everybody very conveniently throws all their muck out onto the lane, and therefore it is actually the cause of degenerated environment, intended to be opposite. But instead of window, if you give a door, you would totally change. You would not even wait for a municipal person to come and engage. Each one would share and grow trees or pave it or whatnot. So that's what is that culturally responsive design. This is Ahmedabad, UNESCO recognized nice neighborhood street where there is a blurred interface between inside and outside. As against legally 15% of land kept open. But look, there is not even a window looking out, and as a result it remains desolate, and at some point it will be encroached upon. Too large a space, like rubber stamped in a neighborhood, fails to engage with the life and the built form. While traditional quarters we had like a Chinese puzzle, small scale, as a system of unbuilt spaces, interconnected. And it's not the money, it's the mindset. Left hand side, such slums, but at a convenient junction of movement. As a node, what it has? Just a dignified plinth and the shade giving tree as a public open space. As again, this is Ballard Estate, one of the most expensive real estate in the world. And these are who is who of the corporate world. It's not a desolate environment. It would be Kirloskar, Tata, Birla, Reliance, Ballard Estate. But look at this attitude. There is a pipe over a window, which means that it's AC environment inside have nothing to do on this side. And that attitude has relegated the priceless real estate into not to be space. While front is very beautiful colonial facade. Talking of environment, but technology is a tool. As I said, it's a contextual adjustment. In a desert, in order to keep the medicine refrigerated, if you use the solar tools, is it a paradox or it is the smartest thing to do? When you go by formula, I even include not the intent but that IGBC 2 points. If you do copper piping, you get 2 points. That's a formula. Like this, any laptop, but I put on it extra bamboo chip. I say it's a green laptop. XYZ building platinum did exactly that. That on an exposed concrete column, forcibly putting the China mosaic cladding to say I use the waste and I get 2 points. Well, it would have saved on material if it was not being current over there. It doesn't add to the performance. On top, maybe, not on the column. So, what we need is not the left-hand side. For example, Mr. Willy Broeker, the same scientist, Wally Broeker, that coined the term global warming for this planet, is doing various million-dollar projects using these installations, arguably to maybe oxygenate planet or whatever. Could natural planting of trees not do at no cost? So what we need is answer something like this, that these children from Africa are very voluntarily and merrily taking turns to rotate the wheel. But in the process, this is connected mechanically to the aquifer and it is lifting the water up to the water tank, and 24/7 you get water coming down from there. So that's the kind of solution we need. That's what needs to be integrated in our building bylaws. Okay. For example, in Montreal, which is a cold place, the public space, there is a bylaw that you cannot cast shadows more than 50% on that. So everybody has a right to sun. And as a result, you see there's a wedding cake profile, as it's called, that subsequent top floors are receding, so the sun can penetrate through. So, third aspect of sustainability, reduce, refuse, recycle, regenerate, restore, all of that. What are the resources in our design decisions that matter? For example, land. Now look at this. This is an earthen tablet found from excavations of 2nd century BC, the Jataka stories, where land was in abundance and yet it was a reproductive resource. You could cultivate agriculture. And what it shows is that as much land that you can own is the amount of, or as much gold that you can spread is the amount of land you can own. That was the value given to a land which was a reproductive resource. What are we, and that's why the first civilization, most compact built form, 3 sides shared with the neighbor. So least use of fertile land, it was agrarian society. Large land was kept for agriculture. That continued even in the Middle Ages. Look at this. This is Dubrovnik, another World UNESCO site now in Croatia. The area of thousands of people, sustainable settlement is 16 hectares, 40 acres, is exactly the same if you superimpose on a typical American cloverleaf expressway intersection, simply for a luxury of not slowing down vehicle from 100 kilometers an hour. If it was a crossroad, you were willing to stop and turn, you wouldn't need this. So that's the attitude we have given, the priority we have given to an element or machine called car versus what it could do other way around. We had different mindsets. For example, even today, now there will be Shravan, You go early morning in Ahmedabad place called Manek Chowk, an urban paved plaza. In the morning, cowherd brings the hay stock. It's a cow grazing ground. He brings his hay stock. You buy from him that, so he's cash rich and happy. You don't mix too with that grass at home. You feed his own cows, so the cows are happy. They bless you, and you think you've done something benevolent, so you are happy. You can start sinning again. You've wiped off all your sin. So win-win for all. That happens in the morning. Little later, the same square turns into a business district. Cows are replaced with cars, 500 vehicles get parked, and it's a very intense business district with formal and informal. But this very same in the late evening becomes an outdoor eatery. Okay, so now there's a two-legged animal that starts using it. Okay, so multiple use of space. We don't have 5 times the space, but same space can be used effectively for 5 different ways. There's a small video we have shot for that. Is there a sound we can play? So it starts with Prabhat Peri. Women sing devotional songs. You never can miss flight. This is how the haystock is brought. One hour morning there is a water supply, so daily chores, related activity. Then depending on what you sell, grocery is the first one to open and jeweler the last. In between children play, warming up for market, 10 to 8. As I said, 500 vehicles are accommodated. Formal and informal, which brings in the variety. Spontaneity. And no right of entry reserved. Your being there changes the chemistry. Take it as a mall. Before 11, it's a ghostly place. You might not be allowed in. And it's only monochromatic function inside. Now 8:30 when the jewelers leave, you create a new backdrop. So it's a whole mahol. It's not that jail-like shutter is acceptable. Like he says Madrasi dosa here. And now we become global. Manek pizza. It's a different story. Italian would commit suicide eating that pizza. But that's our globalization. So all ethnic varieties, and with all senses you can be part of this. And this happens every day, morning to evening, So multiple use, plural space, everybody finds something for themselves. Outdoor spaces, this is what Corbusier did, Habitat 67, Unity Habitat in Paris, where terraces became a very safe, contrary to the belief, play area for the children. Vertical greening, this is Shodan House, Sarabai House, that unless you see the left picture, you can't make out that top to bottom it's ground, first and second floor. Greening vertically on the rooftops. Water, Jahaz Mahal. The name is Jahaz Mahal because it is like a ship parked between two water bodies, But citing to detailing, this is Munj Talab, which collects the entire region's rainfall, channelized into one hammam. Then by inclined Mughal chadar, it goes khar onto thing. Then when once manually lifted up with rahat, it goes through very beautiful water channels, and from top to down, simply by gravity, it comes into Kapurthala, which is a lower level area. So no drop of water wasted, and yet integrated architecture. This also has a sound. Sixth century later, when we tried taking the documentary, and you can see it works. This one into a thing. Granted, it's relatively because and once manually lifted up, it becomes high gravity, a natural resource, which runs through human channels and it becomes a human stories that we can with winding levels of the channel, where it's harmful and there's enough water, with a little bit of humidity release, so also it's a natural damage. And finally, that water without being wasted on us comes into the water plant, not like another amount. From there, it goes into another plant at hybridity into lower level area, which is made from the level water also. And then, again, everything runs into the number of mountains, which runs into the different water patterns, where water runs to the selection of the stones, and again goes by the level at the surface. And then running into the channel comes into another plant, which here is called Kapurthala. So this is the first system where every drop of water is made to count, and count is partial terms, where mountain counts, basically counts. And this is where, even though a scarce resource, it has been given a dignity, and it has been sanctified, it has been integral to architecture. So, as building industry consumes 42% of energy, much higher than any other, equally high pollutant, equally high consumption of raw material. For example, one hoarding has 72 fluorescent tubes. In this case, running for 12 hours of night could have electrified 300 houses which does not have light or electricity, which we don't have. We think technology is an answer, This building in Ahmedabad, south facing, it actually throws glare onto the footpath, and footpath there is 3 degree warmer than the rest of the footpath. Okay. This, you think, 100% is the transmittance of a regular glass. By all that you can do to the glass, and expensive is still 40%. But if you only have 1 meter awning, even though on a glass facade, it can reduce to 25%. Okay. This is next to my house, and they repainted the building for, I have seen it over decade. This veil is not removed, and I have a suspicion that the person is a west-facing facade. Right from the first electricity bill, he must be in coma. So with these principles we learn from yesterday's architecture, what have been those which we can apply today? Insulation, both in cold and hot climate, through the mass of the periphery. But insulation must go with ventilation, because in our case we have to ventilate the heat out. Like in a car, if you keep the shutter rolled down, glass, it becomes even warmer because heat is multiplying. But if you keep it little open, the hot air would escape. Okay, so ventilation, multi-tier roof, lofty volume, upper level, holes. Terraces as outdoor living space. Our times we also had cultural events and everything, but it was always winter evening. So you didn't have to do it indoors. When you want something May afternoon outdoors, then you have to worry about other kind of comfort. So, Ahmedabad, we celebrate even here the festivities. Fenestration, most of the radiation apart from roof comes from the fenestration. And this was a very nice idea. Window has 3 functions: light, view, and ventilation. Jali, culturally, not only it's an aesthetic thing like Ahmedabad is identified by the city say Jali, but from inside you know everything out, but from outside you don't know what's going on in. I always say Padmavati knew what Khilji looked like, but Khilji never had a notion what Padmavati looked like. Then Venturi principle, when something passes through a small hole, it picks up velocity. And then Bernoulli's. It's warm, it's cool. So this is scientific, aesthetic, materially kind of workmanship for the craft oriented and aesthetic, cultural. And Mr. Baker taught us how this can be part of even aesthetic. So natural ventilation, three-part window, the top one for ventilation, middle for view, and the lower one for the wind. And you can light thali, permute, and combine. Diffuse light. In India, we have excessive sky component. So actually, we should be needing ray band to diffuse light. So in summer afternoon, if we have a doubly loaded corridor to kind of have artificial light, that's a crime. Not using light is a crime. Outdoor space in Ahmedabad, that UNESCO thing, is not one building, not a Taj Mahal, but entire way of life and the built form. This has much higher, 2.7 or 6 FSI than the 11-story building, the old four houses. It has street character. Simple principle, vertically projecting profile. So when sun is overhead, the whole building would be in the shade, and when it goes low, the next building starts sheltering. Courtyard that ventilates, that gives you illumination right inside. You don't need artificial light. The rainwater harvesting, it was self-sufficient. Mass production, but craft-based, again permutation combination. Like IKEA, a carpenter would have bracket, window, door, and combination will be unique to you for your house, to someone another. And yet there was variety. You identified yourself through not the number of the plot, but by the color of the door or anything like that. Multiple use. In the morning it's gossip, daily chore, afternoon kitty parties and play area, evening socializing, watching birds. Even the way of life, sustainability actually begins with way of life. For example, what fan does with electric power is what you did in a swing jhula with a muscle power. That when you jhulao and jhula, you are actually evaporatively cooling yourself. Okay, and as a result, and this is one most versatile furniture. This is seat as well as a bed. You can lie down. This every day, if I change a new cushion or a new chadar, it's new. કથા વાર્તા હોય તો સાકર નીકાળી દઉં તો then it's a full flexible void. અને આ બાજુ બી કરી શકું, આ બાજુ બી કરી શકું. પેલી વહુ આ બાજુ વાળતી હોય તો સાસુમાં છીકણી લઈને આ બાજુ બેસે, એને તક જલ્દી જલ્દી પાછળ વાળું તો પાછા માજી આમ બેસી શકે. So even that appropriate to the place, culture, climate, etc. And just a very naive rule, it may be wrong in some places, but spicier the food, warmer the place, or other way around, warmer the place, spicier the food. So once again, tikhu khaiye parsevo thai, evaporative cooling. Now all those principles very quickly I'll summarize in some of the projects, but what I want to show through that is that every scale the principle is applicable of sustainability, of cultural appropriate, etc. And not only that, every scale of intervention, meaning from installation to a memorial, in between the architecture, the housing, whatever. And also, its formula, sustainability is not a formula, it's a phenomenon, and there could be diverse approaches. The goal is what it is. So just first the refuse, very small intervention in a slum housing where 3 sides are shared with neighbor and last rooms are pitch dark as well as very warm with patra roofing. So we came up with this, which could very easily substitute bulb for lighting in the daytime, but would not give you ventilation. So we shifted to something like this called Ujasiu. We won a United Nations award also for changing the quality of life of people. With this, now 250 rupee minimum electricity saving per month of every house, and 1500 rupee increase in home-based economic activity per month for every house. The kids had no excuse कि homework नहीं कर सकते, light नहीं थी. They unfortunately had to study and health index improved. So small intervention, but quality of life could be changed. Okay. Then reuse, you know it well. This was a defunct or less used kind of a installation for safai, alternative sanitation, because the whole root cause of untouchability Where people clean behind you, you were calling untouchable. That was Gandhi ashram. One group of trust doing that. So we turned this into a seating and auditorium. You choose your own, and there is a documentary shown. And there we did toilet cafe, or khane pe khana. You can choose your own potty as a seat, etc. Everything to remind you about toilet, but hopefully in a positive way, simply to change the mindset. So as I say, design begin at the interpretation of a program. Reuse. This is Corbusiers building, Mill Owners Association, as dilapidated as you see, turned into sympathetic reuse of putting a permanent museum. It's also another story. People chipped in, so it's the most participatory place, and now a museum. So it's also cultural restoration. Reduce. Usually I do to remind myself one day I'll succeed. This is now interior. That natural palette of material, nature inspired detailing, natural daylight. You put perpendicular to the source. We won the Immersion Cup International Award for this, for reduction in energy consumption. IT office. So not have boss's cabin in the periphery. More people can use that, etc. So beautiful common sense principle. Redefine. This is a residence right here in Baroda. If you get an access, it's called Shah Jahan. Just the Shahs are staying there. And this building has been published in 51 Beautiful Homes, 2 editions. Point is that even rich person's house, but same principles, less maintenance, kind of a material or the finish. It's a cavity wall construction, which is ventilating, so insulation, then massing based on the orientation that it's a part of east, west, north, south. Then so the aesthetic emerges out of that. Water harvesting and the recycling. All that courtyard is an underground tank, even for the happy rich family. Natural palette of materials. When I started the design, there were 2 briefs only. Artificial material, assuming that there's low maintenance or no maintenance, and central air conditioning. And from there, through process, voluntarily, they regress to say Kota stone with some inlays, cheapest, and selective air conditioning. So this is a no false ceiling. All you see is a sectional kamal, no false ceiling. For example, this is a formal living room next to the courtyard, so it expands in feeling. It's sunken a little and it's raised in the ceiling. So rest of the passage is 8 feet, but here you get 12 feet high. Now what does that raised part do? On top, it's a natural bed. You just put a futon and that's your seating or sleeping area. So it's all the sectional jugglery. And contemporary interpretation of courtyard. You maintain the light and view, air ventilation as it is, but no monkey, no thief, no dust, no rain. This is no chimney kitchen. That's a skylight like that. So here you get the escape of heat, smell, and ingress of diffuse light all the time. This is the kitchen. Courtyard. Craft. I urge you that in your design promote craft and craftsmen, because in India it's rich and affordable. But if we don't give patronage next generation, why would they engage into that? Okay, so let's not lose this. And this is very unique. You buy the most expensive shirt, there's somebody else to wear it. But if you get it stitched, nobody else has the same. Dynamics of light. This is double heighted dining area with bird moving. This is the ferrocement roof with east and west orientation, so it wakes you up in the morning. Both craft detailing and technical today's technology can coexist. It's not a contradiction or a respond. This is what I practice at home a lot. Standalone building, and each orientation is giving you the form. For example, northern staircase, then it's a contemporary jali without air conditioning. Southern jali is little more elaborate with the Ahmedabad's kind of monument reproduction. And southwest is contradiction. It's good for breeze but bad for sun. So therefore vertical operable louvers, and in front ledges there is a plantation. You can see little behind that. So this is how interactive it is. This is again a standalone building, recognized through its vegetation on each floor, including this is a sixth floor. Recycle, we did a small institute, now coming to a small slum institute. We recycle 2600 metric ton of waste every day gets produced in Ahmedabad. Now it's risen to 3200. Some of these domestic and municipal waste could be turned into recycled building components like this. And with the very basic skill like widows on livelihood, filling up the liquor bottles, even in a dry state, there are plenty available. And we can, with thumb rule, just by singing bhajan at their home, do that, earning few meals equivalent of livelihood, and then making it into a, so this is a rag rope or a plastic rope braided like a choti. It can become a sellable commodity. Flyers brick, waste residue bricks from the Pirana dump field site, soil block with 5% wooden crate partitions. This is what they did. Nobody gives you 5 paisa for that, but with this it became 2.5 rupee equivalent of a brick in the wall. आप तो झूमते हो, दीवारें भी झूमती है, बाद में the west facing facade, where no amount of overhang can cut that down, low sun, but staining of the glass, and that's also like a jali, because as I say, opposition, breeze can come in, the glare can be cut out. And it's not bouquet, I think it's very exotic. I put it in one of the farmhouses also. This is below neutral zone, the pillar slab with any inert material, including digital. This is rag sandwiched FRP. This is organic design in the sense whatever we found in a scrap. I stood 4 days on a site simply asking welders to see if we can rotate the wheel, and he also got excited. I was happy making a shape, but he said, no, I can make it move. आप यहाँ handle घुमाओगे, पूरा घूमेगा, likewise. Not that we bought a bicycle, it so happened that scrap that time we had was this. Same way, digital waste, if anybody can invent, you will find a lot of interesting khufia messages in this. It's all CDs as a paneling. Even, I love you, use Cadbury for that, we've been trained for that, but that is neither paper nor plastic, the wrapper. So the shavings don't mean anything. So here shavings became to substitute glass wool, the fibers into this. Crate wood, window, oil-tin container opened up to become a partition, louvers, ventilators. Somebody's waste you have to pay to offload from your site. Here it becomes a resource by resizing, cutting, or using it in certain ways. Paver block out of the waste tiles. Multiple use of space. Morning it's a school, afternoon it's a vocational training, it's a crash through the day, and in the evening it becomes a social place. So reinterpret. This is a larger institute. Anytime you come to Ahmedabad, you're welcome to visit this. Simple common sense principles for sustainability. Staggered massing like a checkered board. So courtyard, outdoor space become a living space with good shadows. South is the tallest, north is the lowest. So it's a mutual shading. Earth as a reproductive resource. Then from where we took the soil in order to raise the ground level. Otherwise, hundreds of trucks offload that. Here, no import or export of soil. It's all local cut and fill management. And where it was cut, it became a natural earth-bound space, which was classroom. Like Haveli's vertically projecting profile. So, and it was all done manually. No software in this case involved. But you could still achieve a lot simply by common sense. Evening area to the southwest, morning areas to the northeast. So when it is right for that time, cavity wall construction, but ventilated cavity, so that even inside air is not trapped. Ferrocement roof, which would be little, thin, but it can transmit heat. So again with vermiculite cooling, and on top the China mosaic, 3-part window, the contemporary interpretation, light, view, ventilation, but control at your end. 22 lakh liter is harvested here with roof water harvesting, with groundwater recharging, or the open pond, and including recycling of the bathroom waste. Like this is root zone system, this is biogas, this is fertilizer, solar active energy, and therefore multiple use of, and all barrier free with ramp and And outdoor space as a usable space, so you don't have, there's no space larger than 150 people accommodation, and yet this has 300 people for a travels play also conducted here. And when Mr. Abdul Kalam Saab I went to inaugurate, there were 1,000 people. Interactive flooring, and these are all expressions of all that idea. Then restore. This is now going to the settlement. This is post-earthquake. That was the devastation. People had khamir and they created self-esteemed neighborhood where culture, craft and architecture could be intertwined. And these houses did not fall, even though they are kacha mitti houses. Bank will not give you collateral, but all scientific reasons, from a circular plan to slenderness ratio to bracing of jam to putting a conical roof to monolithy of the material, it withstood because traditional wisdom. They had earthquake frequently, like Japan. We say earthquake frequently, but no casualty, because they knew how to counter that. That's why traditional, for performance reason of their encountering the forces of the place over time and perfecting it, aesthetically even today if we like it, so aesthetic performance, and before electricity, if they were part of it, and still comfortable, how do we not learn those principles? So we did this participatory process. I succeeded in maintaining my paunch but losing my hair. That was the sponsor to my right. We did this interactive process of creating the, we had our ego, okay, organic plan batate hai and all. So we actually took to the scale these plots and put it there. They said कि यार अपने थोड़े क्लास बंक किए लगते हैं, हमें ये नहीं जमेगा. Then they took the plot and organized themselves who wants to be their neighbor and all that. That we took it to the site with a model so that they understood and approved of the orientation, etc. But that model will not give you an idea of scale. So we paid 4 of these because वो अहमदाबादी कंजूस वाली impression होती है ना, इतनी सारी जगह हम इतना देते हो. And then when we put that, he said कि ठीक है नर्मदा का पानी पिया है हमें चलेगा, you know. So that is how their sense of acceptance and comprehension was very important. And then self-help construction. They knew how to do these houses better than me, because I don't know soil and what to do with it. They know it. So they were doing their own house. 10 people from the youth of the community did 3,000 blocks a day with the manually pressed rem. They built their own house, so they would do the best they can. Youngest of the family learned this traditional wisdom from the oldest. So this know-how continues to go through, at least coming to generation. They complicated roof like this 12-year-old boy does then. I don't remember that boy now, but we have hired many of them for some other projects to do as a resort or whatnot. So this even became a earning skill for them, you know. So this was 24 years ago, and that time he was 10-year-old. Now he's 30 and he's a resource to be able to do this, you know. And you can see that 2.5 months, 75 rupees square foot. This is the interior. Mr. Amitabh Bachchan wants others to come for Khushbu of Gujarat, you know. Let's become a tourist point. Each house is unique every Diwali. And here culture, craft, art, all have continued. This is also their cultural expression. In a hot climate, you don't want big windows because they will bring vagaries. So small window, but small should not mean dingy and dark. That's why white clay and mirrors, so you maximize that. So it's not even a decor, there's a reason for that. Then amenities were done. Even intermediate technologies, that if you can at least ventilate the charcoal burnt, you know, stove, so the better air quality, at least decentralized lighting, and from where we dredged the nearby depression to create the block for the houses, mud block, that became with a clay strata a natural reservoir, and 3 inch of rainfall, you got the talab, which also keeps it, and without us saying, in the middle of desert where there is drought, with water next to that, they created agriculture. So change the whole ecology of the place, you know. And with water, always culture flourishes. Each house 75 rupees a square foot, beautiful interiors, very personal. We won an international award, Habitat Award for this, and we were asked after 10 years when they were writing a chapter on each of these winning projects to go revisit. Even if it was failed, you should express so that some others learn out of that. So many of these are recent pictures You can see tradition, modernity is not antithesis. It is simply that they can coexist, that culture and the way of life has existed and yet technology can easily support that. So this is the ones which we saw they continue to do. And finally, regenerate. This is memorial for Cadila Pharma. This is where Mr. Indiran Modi, the founder, was laid or cremated. Same point in the middle, and this cosmo-religious model. There's all reasons for everything here. I'm only saying it's all space making out of 5 elements of space. No build form, and yet you can spend 2 days. I can guarantee if you want here, and all those principles of integrating craft, reproductive, this is exactly the Khanjot where he was laid and all around. So quiet water, and this is a meditation place, so you go to pay homage. They did not want a mausoleum kind of a covering on top. The family said we are celebrating his life. So we will just like a kund we designed, they said we'll sit here and mull on a quiet, tranquil water, reflect yourselves there. So from there to 52 fountains per sound value of that gives you enclosure. This is herbal and religious plantation, Tulsi, Damro, Mogro, likewise. There are 120 plant species, 87 inside to commemorate his 87 years of life, 87 Bhagavad Gita's shloks. So it's like circumambulatory, water gargling over craft. This is the same Ayush Kasliwal that designed it for Delhi, this thing. So element. This is Mr. Mohapatra, who is the Padma Vibhushan artist, no more anymore, but he did a lot of these sculptures, Dashavtar, the idea of cyclic time, and out of nowhere, all this vegetation is created, and even natural stone. We just last year won the national award for stone architecture. And this is the museum part, which is also buried below the ground. You can actually walk over with the natural vegetation, and from there you see that whole Nazara. This is also land management. So that's the way. So just to conclude, lot of young friends here, I'll read this passage. Glamour and beauty both catch our attention, but glamour like a fashion fades away in no time, while beauty lasts forever. The one is applied like a cosmetic, the other one is integral, my features or whatever that have I. So this is grandpa is asked by grandson, Grandpa, how old are you? And grandpa replies, Son, I was born before television, penicillin, polio shots, frozen food, Xerox, contact lenses, frisbees, credit card, laser pen, ballpoint pen, pantyhose, air conditioner, dishwashers, and men hadn't yet walked onto the moon. Your grandmother and I got married first and then lived together. Every family had a father and a mother. We were born before computer dating, dual career, daycare centers, and group therapy. Our lives were governed by 10 commandments, good judgment, and common sense. Serving your country was a privilege, and living in the country was even bigger pride. We thought fast food was what people eat during the fasting days. We never heard of FFAU, state decks, CDs, electric typewriters, yogurts, or guys wearing earrings. We listened to the news and president speeches on our radios. Pizza Hut, McDonald's, and instant coffee were unheard of. In my day, Coke was a clothing, pot was something your mother cooked in, rock music was grandmother's lullaby, aides were helpers in principal's office, cheap meant a piece of wood, hardware was found in a hardware store, and software wasn't even a word. And we were the last generation to actually believe that a lady needed a husband to have a baby. No wonder people call us old and confused and say there is a generation gap. How old do you think I am? I'm sure all of you young people must be thinking, no hope, no pizza, what a life. This must be way back, two primitive men must be rubbing the stone to ignite fire, dinosaurs all around, once upon a time. This may be 70-year-old story. What has changed is tools and technology, but to confuse that हमारा जमाना बदल गया आजकल तो फॉग चल रहा है. Actually, I also checked. There was a perfume called Goff. So Goff का fog हो गया इतने साल बाद or whatever. So point is that don't fool ourselves that as human being over this time we have evolved that differently. Okay. So point is that therefore if we base our development model On these two fundamentals of human to human and human to nature will never be out of fashion. It will be always sustainable culturally, climatically, and aesthetically. 100 years apart, have we really changed as human beings? What has changed is a tool in our hand. And once again, I said we'll bring back that Corona time, that with all Skype and the video calls, meeting someone even after breaking curfew in person was something we longed for. A year later, there was a vengeance traveling overseas. We felt confined within the places. Yes, what changes is a fashion over time. There was a time we had to push the kid in to study. Now we have to push him how to play. We used to chain a dog. Now we chain ourselves where there is a charger. A technology that could bring people of the globe together over a table, while here on the same table we are each in our own world. We had our own WhatsApp, our own CCTVs, and our own surfing for that matter. So point is that we can empower. That's a sign to stop. I will. Okay. You can empower through design, but the goal is to improve the quality of life. You can, to do that.